The King's Avatar, Chapter 1482, Stepping Back, Audio Source, WuShowWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1482, Stepping Back. Translator, Gnome Yummy. Editor, Gnome Yummy. They hadn't even gone on stage yet, and the mockery had already begun. This knife at Zhangjiali was particularly cruel. Even the stadium worker nearby couldn't keep a straight face. But these people from Tyranny had interacted with Yishu for far too many years, and understood him very well. And Zhangjiali was such an easy target, it'd be strange if Yishu didn't take a few jabs at him. So even though Zhangjiali expressed his indignation, Tyranny as a whole remained fairly unruffled. They were all so familiar with each other that even if the hostility was high, they just treated it all as insults traded between bad friends. Notably, when Yishu said this, some people in Tyranny almost laughed, such as Lin Jingyan. When Lin Jingyan saw Zhangjiali twist his head to look at him, he hastily turned it into a cough. Adjusting his glasses, he regained his composure. "When did you become nearsighted?" Feng Rui happened to be standing across from Lin Jingyan. Feng Rui wasn't as familiar with the others in Tyranny, but he and Lin Jingyan had been partners back in the day, so of course the degree of familiarity wasn't the same. Lin Jingyan adjusted his glasses again. "They're plain glass. Trying to look all intellectual?" Feng Rui said. "I think they looked quite good." Lin Jingyan appeared to be quite satisfied with this new accessory. But then, he heard another voice speak up from behind Feng Rui. "You're a brawler. What kind of brawler wears glasses to look intellectual?" "Steamed bun. Only steamed bun would have such strict views on brawlers. My character's class is a brawler, thanks." Lin Jingyan felt gloomy as he turned and answered steamed bun. "You don't like brawlers? Then why do you pick one?" said steamed bun. Quote. At this point, Lin Jingyan couldn't explain any further. This steamed bun insisted on drawing an equals sign between the in-game brawler class and a real-life brawler. Alright, the brawler class did have the aura of a street thug, but this was still a separate matter. Okay. Did using this class mean you had to have the aura of a street thug? Lin Jingyan looked at steamed bun throughout his plain glass glasses, and found that he couldn't say anything. This guy really fit the image. This hairstyle, this attitude, this attire, throw him onto a street, and anyone would recognize him as a little brawler. And quite a handsome brawler at that. Ha! Aside from a weak chuckle, Lin Jingyan really had no idea what to say. In the end, Happy's trash talk did have some effect, not from the experienced Yishu, but from the rookie steamed bun. Fortunately, they were finally about to walk onto the stage. Yishu, Han Wenqing. When the two captains met at the center of the stage and shook hands, the entire stadium erupted with enthusiastic applause. 10 years. Both of them had once stood at the peak of glory, had experienced ups and downs. Now, 10 years had passed, and they still stood on this stage, still stood on this battlefield, still faced off against each other. Whether they loved or hated them, no one could erase the respect held toward these two people. The two of them shook hands and prepared for battle, once more, after so many times throughout the years. Everyone delivered up applause, no matter whether they were Happy fans, Tyranny fans, or old Excellent Era fans looking for excitement. But soon after the applause, "Kill him." Such brutal and foul language immediately rose up within Zhaoshan Stadium. Respect had been expressed, so the next step was to establish dominance. The two of them had faced off for 10 years, and the fans behind them had faced off for 10 years as well. Even if their team backgrounds were thrown away, these two people's names were enough to ignite a fiery chaos. The emotions of the stadium were immediately bursting aflame, and under this ruckus, the players of the two teams continued to shake hands down the line. After that, the players returned to their respective player areas, and Yishu alone remained on stage. Oh, quote, in Happy's home stadium, there were naturally many Happy fans. Seeing this, they immediately started cheering. They knew all too well what this meant. This meant that Yishu was still the first up. Starting from the second round of the regular season, up through the second round of playoffs right now, he had always been Happy's first player, and he had yet to lose a single 1v1. 37? Loyal fans didn't even recognize this streak anymore. It should be 39. There was no individual competition in the playoffs. There was only the group arena, and they couldn't expect anyone to 1v5, right? So, because Yishu had twice defeated the opponent's first player, they counted that result into the record. Quite a few people were emphasizing that Yishu's current win streak was no longer 37, but more accurately 39. And now, for the 40th time, Yishu was Happy's first player. There was no more suspense. After the pre-match formalities, he simply remained on stage and aimlessly strolled around. In the past, this would have been quite a valuable shot, because Yishu never made public appearances before. He'd always hide very well. But now, it had already been a whole season, so that mysterious aura had long since disappeared. By wandering around on stage now, in everyone's eyes, it looked like he was trying to provoke tyranny. "I'm right here. Which of you will come to fight me? Who's coming?" Happy's fans knew how to get hype, and immediately began shouting, "Han Wenqing, you dare come!" Someone shouted this. In theory, if a Happy fan wasn't formerly an excellent era fan, they shouldn't have much reason to hate Han Wenqing. But everyone at least knew that there was so much history between Han Wenqing and Yishu, and so at this time, they wouldn't shy away from helping their own team's captain provoke the other. Of course, everyone loved this kind of topic, and so very quickly, the entire stadium was helping Yishu call out Han Wenqing. Tyranny's fans had no way of retaliating, because the player order was decided before the match. If they really hadn't set Han Wenqing as the first player, there was no way that they would decide to change the order just because the whole stadium was shouting for Han Wenqing to come on stage. But Happy's choice to send Yishu first was a very obvious thing, right? Would Tyranny back down from such a challenge? They wouldn't. Of course they wouldn't. This was Tyranny. This was their captain Han Wenqing. Knowing that Yishu stood before him, would he retreat? What a joke. When they thought to hear, Tyranny's fans immediately gained confidence. Thus, they also began to shout for their captain, as though it was a guarantee that Han Wenqing would come on stage. All the way until the digital screen flashed with Tyranny's first player. All the way until, in Tyranny's player area, the first player stood up. The stadium quieted down for a moment, and then Happy's fans exploded with crazy jeering. And Tyranny's fans? They were silent. Tyranny's first player, Chin Muyan. Character, sharpshooter -9 degrees. Han Wenqing actually retreated. He'd clearly known that Happy's first player would be Yishu. And yet he still didn't stand forward to fight Yishu, instead leaving this opportunity to Chin Muyan, this most overlooked player of Tyranny's main roster. The audience was shocked, as were the commentators Pan Lin and Li Yibo. This was entirely outside of their expectations. Pan Lin and Li Yibo had just been talking about how Yishu's position as Happy's first player had never changed. And so into the confrontations in this round of the playoffs, it was very possible that Yishu would 1v1 Han Wenqing a number of times. Best of 3. This 10-year conflict might finally see an answer. Pan Lin had noted, but unexpectedly, Han Wenqing actually hadn't come up to fight. This. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Quote, "At first, the two wondered whether Han Wenqing had sustained some injury and wouldn't be able to fight at all today. But when they thought again, they remembered he had still been playing well last round. Would he suffer such a serious injury in just a few days? Tyranny couldn't be that unlucky." The two exchanged glances. They had no idea how they would explain this. The televised broadcast ignored Chin Muyan as he went on stage, instead choosing to show a close-up of Han Wenqing. Tyranny's captain merely sat in his seat, his face cold, his attention on their player walking on stage. It didn't seem like there was anything unusual going on. The match hadn't even begun yet, but the player order had already given everyone a big surprise. It was just completely outside of everyone's expectations that had been formed over the course of 10 years. Yi Shu, too, was surprised. The broadcast didn't skip over him, and furiously snatched close-ups of his reaction when Tyranny didn't send up Han Wenqing. Yi Shu was indeed somewhat caught off guard, somewhat surprised. He glanced toward Han Wenqing, still in Tyranny's player area. But then, he smiled lightly. Was it mockery? Those who saw this immediately began analyzing Yi Shu's smile. Not mockery. The smile looked more like one of understanding, more like one of relief. When Han Wenqing's expression was shown next to his on-screen, this feeling became even stronger. After shaking hands with Qin Muyin, Yi Shu headed to the player booth to prepare for the upcoming battle. Everyone was still discussing what it meant that Han Wenqing hadn't come on stage, and poor Qin Muyin was completely overlooked. Han Wenqing isn't going up against Yi Shu first battle. Are you watching this? Huang Shaoshan had come to watch the match live. With his status, getting the best VIP seats wasn't difficult, of course. There was no way he could sit with the masses, because after all he was a top star of Glory as well. Right now, seeing Tyranny's arrangement, Huang Shaoshan sent out a text. I'm watching. Quote. A reply came. Yu Wenzhou. What do you think he's trying to do? Huang Shaoshan continued to ask. Stepping back, Yu Wenzhou replied. They were all players at the highest level. With such great mutual understanding, not much need to be said. Stepping back. The one thing that it had always looked like Han Wenqing didn't know how to do was step back. But now, he made this kind of choice. Was he yielding? Was he compromising? No. There was absolutely no way. If Han Wenqing knew how to yield, how to compromise, then countless people's worldviews would be completely shattered. Han Wenqing was changing. In the twilight years of his professional career, for the sake of that goal, he was adjusting himself. Much of this could be seen, in fact, from his performance over the course of the regular season. Stepping back wasn't compromising, even less so yielding. Stepping back was a wisdom that Han Wenqing understood, but was unwilling to accept. Yet this time, he had done it. And this was just an arrangement of player order. On the actual battlefield, the Han Wenqing who now knew how to step back, what kind of performance would he bring? End chapter.
The King's Avatar, Chapter 1483 High-Level Hide and Seek, Audio Source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1483, High-Level Hide and Seek. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Happy-faced Tyranny in their home game. The first round of the group arena would be Yi Shu vs Qin Muyin. The match was at the loading screen stage, but the crowd had yet to quiet down. The people didn't care about the match itself. Happy's fans were booing loudly at Han Wenqing for not coming out, while Tyranny's fans felt like they couldn't hold their heads high. They forgot that although Han Wenqing hadn't been sent up this round, the player who had, the poor Qin Muyin, wasn't getting any attention. Up until the match began. When Qin Muyin's -9 degrees appeared on stage through Glory's projection technology. On the big screen in the stadium, on the TV or computer screens of countless Tyranny fans, they finally realized that though Han Wenqing may not have gone up, their Tyranny was still fighting. You can do it. Cheers erupted from the away game seats. Team Tyranny's fans. The loud cheers all of a sudden gave Happy's fans a fright. Excellent Era fans were experts at competing against Tyranny fans. Although Happy's fanbase had some crossover with Excellent Era's fanbase, it wasn't a majority. Happy's fans couldn't beat Tyranny's fans in a yelling contest, and the regular season had already proved that. But this was the playoffs, a competition where one side died while the other side lived. Happy was a new team that was creating a miracle. Once this thought came across their minds, Happy's fans started to feel their blood boil too. This is our home field. How can we let tyranny overwhelm us? The first intense battle of this playoffs round began with the audience. In the meantime, the two players on stage were calmly making their way forward. Happy had chosen the map, Thatcher Manor. It was another setting from a map in the heavenly domain. The map consisted of a multitude of elements: a lake on the west side, a small forest on the east side, and a two-story tall manor in the center of the map. Apart from that, there were all sorts of small buildings scattered throughout the map, such as a mill, a stable, gardens, and so on. The two characters spawned on the north and south end of the map. Both of them chose a direct route straight to the center. However, because of the obstruction from the manor, neither of them could see the other side. Shin Mayun's -9 degrees came from the north side towards the back of the manor. It looked like he wasn't a complete stranger to this map. After arriving there, he had -9 degrees move towards a corner and then borrow window sills and pillars as platforms to jump on. Shortly afterwards, -9 degrees made his way to the roof of the manor, giving him a wide view of the map. But Shin Mayun immediately had -9 degrees crouch and search for an appropriate position before carefully looking outwards. He was looking towards the south, but there were no signs of anyone. Judging by Lord Grimm's movement speed, if he had taken the middle road, he should be here too. But he wasn't. The left, the right, or could it be? Shin Mayun looked downwards. The manor wasn't just decoration. It could be entered. If he and Yishu chose to take the middle road, while he had been jumping onto the roof, he could have easily entered the manor without him noticing. There was a door at the back of the manor too, but Shin Mayun chose not to go in. Sharpshooters held an advantageous position in an open field. Fighting inside the manor would not be a good idea for a sharpshooter. Perhaps Yishu had chosen to go in for that very reason. As Shin Mayun pondered over this question, his -9 degrees took the next step. Boom! He vaguely heard an explosion, seemingly far yet seemingly close at the same time. As the explosions continued to sound, he was able to accurately determine that the explosions were coming from below. Hua, -9 degrees, was laying on the rooftop. However, he hadn't expected Lord Grimm to fire shots from the inside and blow a hole in the roof to force -9 degrees to fall towards him. Shin Mayun reacted quite fast. He immediately had his character jump to the side and throw a grenade into the hole. Yishu's Lord Grimm was standing there with his umbrella open, looking at the roof and admiring his masterpiece. Then, he noticed a grenade roll out from cloud of black smoke. Bang! Boom! Yishu fired at the grenade, making it explode. For a normal player, executing this move would make them feel unbelievably cool, but in Yishu's hands, it just looked like any other day. The grenade was no threat to him, but it gave Yishu second thoughts. He could have Lord Grimm fly through the hole in the roof and give chase using rotor wings, but he had to consider the possibility of an ambush from Shin Mayun. As a result, Lord Grimm went towards the window. He jumped up, shattered the glass, and leaped out. It was the second floor, but Lord Grimm didn't fall. The moment he was outside, his umbrella transformed into a ninja too and stabbed into the wall. He used it as a lever to jump and then stabbed his ninja too into the wall again. Yishu was very familiar with the ninja's rock climbing technique. It was difficult for the audience to keep their eyes away from Lord Grimm's fluid movements. Lord Grimm climbed up the wall, his direction clear. After a few rises and falls, he made it onto the roof. He didn't stop to rest. He rolled towards a bunker to hide, not making a sound the entire way through. Then, he peeked out his head and looked towards the other end. Nothing. -9 degrees wasn't there. Shin Mayun hadn't chosen to mount an ambush. Yishu didn't waste time just because it was outside of his expectations. Lord Grim quickly looked around and found a few potential spots on the rooftop. From Lord Grim blowing a hole in the roof to jumping onto the roof, the entire course of action took only 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Yishu had checked where Chinmayun could have moved to within those 5 seconds. There were only 2 other possibilities. First, he could have jumped off the roof. But Yishu's Lord Grim had just climbed up the wall and didn't see him, so it was unlikely. The second possibility was that Chinmayun jumped through that hole. Calm, collected, and exceptional at picking spots. These were the characteristics that Yishu observed from the 5th player who stood beside Tyranny's 4 heavenly kings. Exceptional at picking spots. Yishu suddenly realized something. Lord Grim immediately rolled to the side. Bang! The sound of a gunshot. A bullet pierced through the roof and shot towards the sky. Whoa! Gasps came from the crowd as the bullet flew. The viewers had an omniscient view and could see everything. Lord Grim had jumped out the window and made his way to the roof, while -9 degrees did the opposite and fell through the hole in the roof. Then, just like how Yishu had accurately determined -9 degrees position, Chinmayun accurately determined Lord Grim's position. How had they done it? Intuition and deduction. Li Yibo had commented on this point when Yishu had found -9 degrees position. After Lord Grim entered the manor, he immediately moved towards a spot. From that spot, he was able to catch a glimpse of -9 degrees jumping towards the roof. This wasn't a coincidence. Yishu knew that it was possible to jump onto the roof from the back of the manor, so he looked for a spot for which he could see that. Then, once Chinmayun got to the roof, what hidden observation spots were there? Yishu knew of a spot, and it was the spot that Chinmayun had found. As a result, he attacked there. Vice versa, Chinmayun had predicted what Yishu would do, so he had -9 degrees fall through the roof into the manor. If Yishu wanted to catch a -9 degrees that was laying in wait for an ambush, where would he go? As a result, he attacked there. A high-level confrontation and high-level deduction. WuxRWorldAudio.com. If neither side was exceptional at picking spots and didn't choose the most optimal position, the two would have predicted incorrectly. Li Yibo had given them praise for this point. And this time, Chinmayun's sneak attack didn't need his explanation. Everyone understood it now. But everyone was astonished that Chinmayun's sneak attack actually missed. He had used a high-level snipe, but it missed its mark. Lord Grim suddenly rolling as if he had a premonition was just too miraculous. How did he know? Pan Lin couldn't help but ask Li Yibo. Yishu probably made a prediction one step ahead. Li Yibo forced out his words. He wasn't sure if he was completely correct this time. There was some level of prediction for Yishu's dodge. But to just barely dodge it in such a timely manner, reaction speed had been a part of it, but luck had been very important too. 2 guns, 2 switches in position, fluid movements, and deep mind games. The level of skill displayed in this match could clearly be seen. It looks like this match will be a brilliant game of hide and seek. Quote, just when Li Yibo made this statement, he heard a crash. The rooftop broke apart. Collapsing mountain. After Lord Grim dodged that shot, he didn't stop to take a break. He immediately jumped up and used collapsing mountain towards the roof. Happy had certainly figured out just how durable the roof was. This collapsing mountain split open the roof as Lord Grim crashed down. 1 in the air, 1 on the ground. Lord Grim and -9 degrees saw each other. Hide and seek. Li Yibo hadn't even finished his words when the 2 characters found each other. He had spoken too soon and didn't have time to swallow back his words. Bang 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 bang. Shin Mi-yun stayed calm. His -9 degrees fired at Lord Grimm as he moved. Hua! The myriad manifestations umbrella opened, blocking the bullets. Collapsing mountain had ended when the roof broke apart. Right now, Lord Grimm was falling freely. If he were hit by bullets, he would certainly be delivery gunned away. But with protection from a shield, everything changed. Sword light flashed, falling light blade. Lord Grimm changed directions in the air. His umbrella retracted, but -9 degrees. He was gone. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1484. Faster at finding spots. Audio source: wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1484. Faster at finding spots. Translator: Nomyami. Editor: Nomyami. What is he going to do? Those who understood the change felt more nervous than Yi Zhu. Pan Lin and Li Yibo were even more so. The two wished this wasn't a live stream. They wanted to press pause and then give a detailed analysis of the change for the audience to hear, but unfortunately, they couldn't. It was a match where a myriad of changes could happen in an instant. Hua! Without any trace of -9 degrees to be found, for a moment, Yi Zhu had Lord Grimm raise his myriad manifestations umbrella. Hide and seek. Maybe it looked like that, but it was a hide-and-seek deathmatch. The goal of the game wasn't to find the opponent, but to kill the opponent. After losing sight of -9 degrees, Yi Zhu's response was to lift his umbrella to be on guard against any sudden ambushes from -9 degrees. Then, Yi Zhu quickly recalled where -9 degrees had been when his Lord Grimm had fallen to the ground with collapsing mountain. Next, he tried to predict where -9 degrees could be. For -9 degrees to vanish, he obviously had to have moved, which meant that he first had to pick a spot. Team Happy had chosen this map. How could Yi Zhu not be familiar with this map? He didn't need to look around. He could deduce the optimal position in his head. Charge! Lord Grimm held the umbrella shield above his head as he dashed towards a direction. But at this moment, a pitch-black gun reached out from the other side and aimed towards Lord Grimm. Everyone thought that Lord Grimm would be hit from behind by the bullet, but then, he suddenly stopped. Lord Grimm cancelled charge and turned around. Light flashed. Bang! Sparks flew out from that pitch-black gun. Shin Mi-yun had put in the inputs. It was too late for him to stop. However, between pressing the trigger and Lord Grimm turning around, one of them came first. Yi Zhu had somehow known that -9 degrees would be here before the gunshot rang. Had he looked over here before? The broadcast director checked a replay, but he found nothing. Lord Grimm had never looked towards -9 degrees position. How had he known? Everyone looked at one another. Li Yibo didn't know, but Pan Lin had thrown the question to him already. He didn't answer for now. Lord Grimm stopped abruptly, turned around, and then flickered towards -9 degrees with a shin cut. It was true that sharpshooters had the strongest close combat capabilities among gunner classes, but given a choice, very few sharpshooters would choose to fight at a close range. Gunfu wasn't an easy technique to perform. Without this technique, just their few taijutsu skills alone were nothing worthy of praise. So when Shin Mi-yun saw Lord Grimm heading towards him, his first thought was to retreat. Bang 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 bang. Gunshots continued to ring. -9 degrees leaped backwards and open-fired. Bullets sprayed out from his dual guns, the recoil helping to push -9 degrees back. In this enclosed area, even if the bullets missed Lord Grimm, they would hit other objects in the room. The wall, tables, and all sorts of ornaments were shattered by the bullets. Lord Grimm was unscathed though. Lord Grimm drew a beautiful arc across where he moved, traversing through the rain of bullets. Although negative 9 degrees aerial gun technique allowed him to move fast, it couldn't compare to an actual movement skill. The distance between the two characters was slowly erased step by step. 7 steps, 6 steps, 5 steps, 4 steps. The bullets suddenly formed a net that flew towards Lord Grimm. Negative 9 degrees had also stopped retreating. His movements seemed to be nothing out of the ordinary, but he would constantly maintain an angle that he could attack from. The distance between the two was subtly kept under control. 4-step gun fu. Those who knew what was what instantly recognized it. It could be considered a part of the gun fu technique. The number of steps was a way to look at a player's mastery over the technique. Josei's 3-step gun fu was something no other player in Glory had achieved. It was a realm that only he had reached. The other pro sharpshooters hovered around 4 steps. If they were feeling good, they could reach 3.5 steps. If they weren't, 4 or even 4.5 steps could be riddled with mistakes. Gun fu wasn't a survival technique for when opponents got close. It was an offensive technique for sharpshooters. Shin Miyun's main role in Team Tyranny wasn't as an attacker. His main responsibilities were to restrict his opponents. Gun fu could occasionally be seen from him, but it never drew too much attention. But right now, 4-step gun fu. The viewers didn't even have time to appreciate it, when negative 9 degrees suddenly stepped forward. Bang bang bang. He continued to exert pressure onto Lord Grimm, but the distance between them was 3 steps. 3-step gun fu. Everyone was astonished. Shin Miyun, whose existence in the team seemed so weak, was actually able to perform what up until now only Josei could do. But before the viewers could appreciate this peak 3-step gun fu, negative 9 degrees jumped back, pulling the distance from 3 steps to 5 steps. Some players might not see anything strange, but the skilled players, especially the sharpshooters, were very surprised. Gun fu was about moving in and out, but that didn't mean going from 3 steps to 5 steps to 3 steps. Moving in and out was a way to describe a position, which the user could move into attack or move out to retreat. The number of steps was defined as how many steps it took to move both in and out. Shin Miyun had just performed a 3-step gun fu, but in the blink of an eye, it turned into 5-step gun fu. There was nothing inherently wrong with this sort of change, but how long had Yi Xiu and Shin Miyun been fighting for? 4 steps to 3 steps to 5 steps, wasn't he changing it too much? Was his gun fu not stable? There were too many questions, and the two most worried people among the audience were Pan Lin and Li Yibo, who need to explain it to their friends watching. Li Yibo seemed to have a vague idea, but he wasn't confident in it. Taking advantage of the intensity of the match, he decided not to talk about it. Instead, he and Pan Lin listed out what skills the two players were using. After 5 steps was 7 steps. 7 steps was somewhat far. Gun fu combined gunfire with the sharpshooter's several kicking skills. At a distance of 7 steps, the majority of a sharpshooter's close combat threat was out of the picture. At this point, he was probably planning on breaking away from using gun fu and running away, right? The audience focused their eyes on Lord Grimm. The other side was getting ready to run. What will he do? Lord Grimm made movements, but it was simply to attack. He didn't give chase. Yi Xiu let negative 9 degrees reach 7 steps away. Shin Miyun felt a shiver down his spine. Was he seen through? 7 steps was bait to lure Lord Grimm forward. However, Yi Xiu didn't move. Lord Grimm aimed his attacks towards a very specific direction. It was to counter what Shin Miyun would have done if the bait had succeeded. He really did see through me. Such a specific direction of attack let Shin Miyun make a firm decision. Bang bang bang. Gunfire continued to sound. Lord Grim didn't give chase, so Chin Mi-yun followed along and had -9° begin to retreat. He had already figured out what route he wanted to take. Even though he wasn't very familiar with this map, he was exceptional at picking spots, which also meant that he was exceptional at adapting to all sorts of maps. But then, Lord Grim decided to move. As soon as Chin Mi-yun gave away his intent, Yishu acted. Slide kick. Lord Grim slid across the ground, the bullets flying past him, as he headed towards -9°. Chin Mi-yun immediately had -9° adjust by lowering his aim. He predicted where Lord Grim would slide to and attacked. Bang 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 bang. WushOurWorldAudio.com. The glossy marble ground became riddled with holes. Lord Grim had suddenly jumped. While he had been sliding across the ground, he sprung up into the air just as -9° adjusted his aim. Lord Grim had a gun too. The tip of his Myriad Manifestations umbrella opened and aimed at -9°. Bang bang. Bullets shot out. However, the Myriad Manifestations gun form was a rifle, and Lord Grim didn't have the class advancement skill. Gun proficiency. Lord Grim could not fire rapidly like sharpshooters using normal attacks. Lord Grim only shot out 2 bullets, seemingly negligible out of all the other bullets flying through the air. But Chin Mi-yun didn't neglect them. Lord Grim jumped, the muzzle of his gun gleaming in the light. Chin Mi-yun immediately had -9° roll, while almost adjusting his aim, pointing his gun towards the sky. A bright fiery radiance flashed where Lord Grim was. Flying Meteor. The Exorcist skill was an above level 20 skill, which meant that Yishu had chosen to put this skill onto his Myriad Manifestations umbrella. This skill had probably been used before Lord Grim had fired those 2 shots. Those 2 shots were bait to lure Chin Mi-yun into dodging. Before -9° could press the trigger, the flying meteor had already descended. Boom. A sea of fire swallowed the area. This time, Chin Mi-yun didn't have time to dodge. The flying meteor had been timed too precisely. But the attack only landed because of Chin Mi-yun's skill in picking the optimal spot and moving there. Huang Shaoshan received a message from Yu Wenzhou. Yes. These top experts understood this reasoning. Positioning was originally Chin Mi-yun's strongest point. However, Yishu took advantage of that strength. It was true that Chin Mi-yun could quickly find the most optimal position and move there precisely, but because he always made the optimal choice, it meant that he lacked mix-ups. If Yishu could figure out what that optimal choice was, he could accurately predict where Chin Mi-yun would move to. That sounded simple, but it wasn't something anyone could do. Positioning was Chin Mi-yun's speciality, which meant that he was better and faster than others at figuring out what the optimal position was at any given moment. But since Yishu could keep up with his pace, it meant that Yishu was no worse than Chin Mi-yun in terms of positioning. It could even be said that he could find the right spots faster than Chin Mi-yun could. End chapter.